Just a heads up, the thoughts and opinions in this episode are all mine and may not reflect those of our sponsors. So if you find yourself raising an eyebrow, blame me, not them. Home sellers, when it comes time to sell your home, you've got some options and you may be wondering, which path should I choose? I've sold over 2,500 homes, roughly 50 times more than the average realtor. And today I'm going to break down the 3 most common paths to sell your home. And that's for sale by owner or FSBO, traditional realtor, and flat fee. So you can make the best decision for your situation. Stick around while I break down each method, its pros, its cons, and which one is going to work for you. Welcome to Talking Realty, the podcast for home sellers who want to make more money, save time, and avoid headaches. I'm Glen Whitten, realtor and founder of the Ohio Property Group, where we do the same things as traditional realtors, but instead of charging 6%, we charge a low, flat fee. So you keep more money and you still get better results. Check out all the free home seller tools today at talkingrealty.com. And if you love the show, hit that subscribe button. All right, let's get to it. So the other day, I was talking to a for sale by owner seller. He told me that he has built 19 homes and so far he's sold 13. Not too bad. And more impressively, he's never used a listing agent, never. And the reason we were talking is because he was calling around and emailing and texting and letting every agent in town know that he is willing to pay a commission. All right. Admirable. That is a lot of legwork, FYI. But as I dug deeper into his reasoning, it became clear that he wasn't going for sale by owner or FSBO to save on his commission. Well, at least not only to save on commission. That was a key factor. But more importantly, he wanted to maintain control over the entire selling process. And he didn't feel he could do that if he listed with an agent. So the problem with that, as we talked, is that by trying to save money and maintain control and sticking hardcore for sale by owner, he's actually costing himself a lot of money. So today I wanted to dive into the 3 main ways that sellers can approach their home sale. First, you can do what this guy's doing. You can go for sale by owner. Alternatively, you could go hire a traditional realtor, Remax, Keller Williams, whatever. And you can go on and march forward and pay 6%. And third, what we believe is the best of both worlds, you can try using a flat fee realtor like me. Now, I'm not going to kid you. I am going to be way more enthusiastic about my model. But I mean, let's face it. I could choose to be a traditional realtor. In fact, I was a traditional realtor for a number of years before I decided to do this. I left a very lucrative practice that was up and running, started from scratch. I told some of my story on the last episode, and started the Ohio Property Group as a flat fee brokerage from day one. And I did it on purpose because of the lunch conversation with my buddy Bob. I couldn't get it out of my head. And some of you know this story. It's in my book and it's in the last episode. So yes, I am biased. I mean, this is the model that I built after watching years of sellers getting overcharged and giving up all that control. But I also know that this is not for everyone. So here's what you need to know. I'm going to give you the good. I'm going to give you the not so good about each method, break down what it is and how it works. And I want you to walk away from this deciding which one is going to be the best route for you to go when it comes time to sell. And headline here, it might not be my favorite. I understand that because we are definitely not everyone's cup of tea. So option 1 is what I'm calling the for sale by owner or selling off market, because that's truly what this is. And it encompasses more than just for sale by owners. It also includes things like assignments, like the iBuyers, the We Buy Ugly Houses people, and OfferPad, places like that. And I've covered those pretty deeply from the pros and cons of selling. So I'm not going to deep dive that. I'm just going to give you sort of the skinny on for sale by owner, what's good and what's not so good about it. So what it is you're talking about no fees for anyone and no services provided by anyone. This is all DIY. So whether you're listing on Zillow and the for sale by owner section, or whether you're going to Craigslist or for sale by owner.com type places, Facebook Marketplace, anywhere that's not the MLS, anywhere that doesn't feed your property to like Realtor.com and some of the major sites out there. This is who I'm talking to. You could be using flyers for all I care. You also might be selling directly to someone. Maybe you were thinking about selling, maybe you were doing a little, scrubbing it up, getting it ready, and somebody popped in. Somebody saw the signs and thought, not the literal signs, although you could certainly do that too, but somebody saw signals that maybe you were getting ready to sell, or they heard from somebody who heard from somebody that you might be getting ready to sell, and they approached you. Maybe you got a blind investor offer or an iBuyer offer. Maybe it was just somebody you know. Either way, you could also have been approached by some of these assignment folks that are coming in. I won't get into that because it's a whole other mess. Now, what are the pros of being an off-market seller? Number one, I told you already, is no fees. You don't have to pay anybody anything to do this. This is America. You can just go out and sell your own home. It is usually simple because you don't tend to have a lot of showings. You've got no realtor involvement for the most part, and you control every single aspect. I mean, everything. You control the price, the photos, the marketing. You control the contracts that you use. You control the dates. You control the possession. You control the personal property, all of it. 100% all you. Nobody gets to tell you how to do it. And nobody also includes no realtor looking over your shoulder or trying to push you in a particular direction. Now, what are the downsides? Is that you are almost guaranteed to sell under market value. I don't say that because I'm picking on for sale by owners. I actually love for sale by owners. A huge chunk of our business comes from for sale by owners. And I'll talk about that in a second here. But it is impossible for you as a for sale by owner to market in the MLS. You just can't do it. If you're strictly off market, you are marketing to a much, much smaller pool of buyers. And there's no arguing. This is not my opinion, because the minute you enter the MLS, you're now exposed to literally tens and maybe hundreds of thousands of buyers who aren't going to find you anywhere else. That's just the way of the world. Doesn't mean you can't find a buyer. Of course you can find a buyer. You can plant a for sale by owner sign in your yard, and you can just work with the buyers that come off of that. But truth number 6, more buyers equals more showings, and more showings generally equals more offers, and more offers means more money. So fewer showings, fewer buyers is going to result in fewer dollars. Now, you're not spending and you're not paying a realtor, so odds are you're going to make some bottom line savings, but statistically speaking, it's not enough to overcome what you give up from a marketing perspective in terms of bringing the broadest pool of buyers. Think of it like an auction. If you've got an auction going on and there are only 4 people there, you're probably not going to do as well as if there were, say, 400 people there. I think you take my meaning. But as a for sale by owner, that is probably the biggest drawback, is the lack of marketing exposure. And the goal of marketing, of course, isn't to sell the house. It's just to get people off the couch, get them into a showing so that you and the house can do its thing. Another drawback to the for sale by owner is that you don't know what you don't know. This is the same, though, for all DIY projects. I mean, Tasia and I were just talking the other day. She's in the middle of a bathroom remodel at her beautiful house. And, they're doing a lot of it themselves, not all of it, but a lot of it they're taking on themselves. Hey, they're young and they've got a lot of tools and they've got talent. So they're willing to tackle it, but it does come, I think she'll be the first one to tell you, it does come with a certain amount of frustration, not knowing what you don't know, running into situations you've never seen before. It's going to take you time versus having someone come in and just do it. Yes, you pay a lot more, but it's done and you don't have the headaches. You don't have to buy the tools. You don't have to do all those things. Same with this. If you're going to take on a DIY project and you do this regularly in your life, you already know this. You know that there are certain parts of the process you're not as familiar with. Some people like to say it's like doing surgery on yourself. I don't think it's quite as fatal. I know lots and lots of successful for sale by owner sellers, so I don't think it's quite that bad. But I also know that there are a lot of them that employ us for very specific parts of the process because they understand that they need a little help. Another downside, if you're working with these iBuyers or these cash offer investors or assignments, is the deal you start with is probably not the deal you're going to end up with. So just a fact of life, if you're dealing with corporate buyers or iBuyers or investors, they're all about the bottom line. And they're going to do everything they can from start to finish to make sure that their bottom line is at or above where they need it to be. And sometimes that means some very painful things are going to happen. For example, they're going to list the house or they're going to get the house under contract with you. And then at some point in the future, they're probably going to come back to you and sweeten the deal for themselves. They're going to tell you, for whatever reason, they need to lower the price. They need to decrease some expense. They need to do something. or they're unfortunately going to have to walk away. And many of those deals are structured so that they can walk out scot-free. They don't have to pay you anything. They might lose a small deposit. So we're talking maybe a few $100s that they may or may not sacrifice. But many times the deal doesn't even have that. So keep that in mind if you're going to go FSBO, that there's a good chance the deal you start with is not the deal you're going to end with if it closes at all. So it's a treacherous waters out there, my friends. And the other big thing, this kind of goes back to not maximizing the value, the price you're going to sell it for. The reason these investors, these iBuyers, and these assignment people, wholesalers, they're called, come to you when you're off market is because they want a deal they know they're not going to get once it hits the open market. I get routinely, multiple times a week, I get investors contacting me saying, hey, you got anything coming down the pike? You got anything that hasn't hit the market yet? Because we can work it out. They're trying to induce me with what they consider a double-sided dual agent 6% commission, because they clearly don't know anything about me, to tell them about my secret listing that's coming down the pike. They want to scoop it up before it hits the broader market because they know the minute it goes on the big market, the MLS, the price is going to go up. Well, there's your signal, folks. But there is an ideal customer for this. And this is going to be the person who really wants to do it their way. So you want 100% control. You don't want the MLS rules. You don't want a realtor or anybody else telling you how to do this. For sale by owner is probably a good option for you. You also may be selling to a family member or a friend. You've already got your buyer buttoned up. Well, you don't need to market because in this case, you've gotten the deal you wanted and you got it without having to hassle the entire market. And it may be a better deal for a variety of reasons. How many times have I said a deal isn't just about the price? So there may be other terms. Maybe they're going to let you live in the house for a long period of time without paying rent. You know, if that's what makes your socks roll up and down and makes the deal work for you, this is a great option for you. Another great fit for sale by owners are these tight-knit, tiny, high-demand areas, little communities, little pockets where the buyers are just aching to get in there, and they're literally knocking on doors, and they're leaving flyers, and they're saying, well, I ran into so-and-so at such and such restaurant or church or school or whatever, and they told me you might be thinking about. When that type of activity, maybe this is a good route for you to go. Now, I still think you could benefit because those buyers are still going to show up with the broader market because there may be people out of state, out of the area that also want to live in that area who would love to get an opportunity to bid or to make an offer. So food for thought. But if you've got buyers falling at your feet, you really don't want the hassle of dealing with the marketing and the showings and all that good stuff, fine. This is probably a great route for you. All right. So the bottom line is if top dollar isn't your primary concern, getting the absolute max price, but the convenience of limiting showings, or you have a specific buyer in mind, this is probably for sale by owner is the route for you. And if you're selling for sale by owner and you just need a little support behind the scenes, forums, addendas, stuff like that, we obviously have our tools that are mostly free. And then we also do some one-off consulting. But we are huge fans of the for sale by owner world. I'm probably one of the only realtors on the planet who will tell you that. Hey, real quick, if you are thinking about selling, don't do it without our ultimate home selling toolkit. It is completely free and it uses the exact contracts, the same forms, the same checklists, everything we use to manage hundreds of sales a year. Almost all of our tools that we use are in there and new ones are coming all the time. So whether you're selling for sale by owner or you just kind of want to know what to expect from the home selling process, this is what you need. So download your free copy today at talkingrealty.com or check the show notes or the YouTube comments for that link. Seriously, go hit the pause button, go do it now so you can follow along. All right, back to the podcast. Option 2. The 6% traditional realtor, or just call them traditional, whether they're charging 5, 6, 7, whatever they're charging, but the traditional realtor route. And this is going to be the ones you always think of. We're talking 90% of properties that got sold go this route. So what it is you've got a menu of services that are exactly the same for everyone, but the fees are variable based on the price of the home. So traditional realtors, as I covered in episode 46, basically do the same thing for every seller, but every seller pays a different fee because it's based on the price of the home and not the service. Now, this is the traditional, 100-year-old model. So you're probably quite familiar with it. And I think it's an extremely upside down model, but there are some pros. Number one, you get MLS exposure, you get max exposure. And frankly, a lot of traditional realtors will do some additional marketing beyond the MLS, which is great. It's very, very expensive, but it certainly doesn't hurt. You're also going to get your contract help. You're going to get some negotiation support. You're going to get help with paperwork, pricing, showings, open houses, photography. You're going to essentially have a personal service person holding your hand every step of the way. Another great thing about most traditional realtors is they're available 24/7. According to the National Association of Realtors, most traditional realtors handle 2, maybe 3 deals a year. Well, if you're only doing this 2 or 3 times a year, you got yourself a lot of time. And frankly, for what you're paying them, they better be available 24/7. You should get a bat phone to that person. And the other upside is that you have very few decisions to make because they're going to basically drive the bus for you. So the main number one downside, of course, is the fee. It's a sliding scale, and in Ohio, homes average about $300,000. That's $18,000 in commission, give or take. And you give up a ton of control to the agent. As I said in the opening of what this is, you get the same set of services, but the prices are variable. So most agents, however, and one of the bigger downsides is that most agents are under-trained. They're under-experienced, as I said, according to our own association. Most realtors, half of all realtors did 0 deals last year, and the average is around 2.5 deals a year. So that's not a great fit. When you're charging a lot and you don't have a lot of experience, it's generally not a good value proposition. But anyway, you also have very, very little to no control over what the buyer agent pays or what they get paid, because that's done through your agency. They're going to charge you a certain amount, and they're going to reserve some of that in case there's a buyer's agent. You have no control over that. It could be a very tiny amount because they don't want to attract buyer's agent. It could be a very large amount because they really want to attract buyer's agents. There are also, and I'll do this in a future episode, but there are also traditional companies out there right now in 2025 getting sued, getting all kinds of trouble, getting stirred up again because they don't want to put their traditional listings. They want to be realtors. They want to be part of the MLS and gather buyer leads and properties from the MLS, but they don't want to put their listings in the MLS because they don't want to have to share that commission. They're basing it all on privacy or whatever, but keep this in mind. If you're hiring a traditional realtor, make sure, one, you understand the commission structure. How much does your agent keep? How much goes to the buyer agent? And is it going into the MLS? And is it going to be held back as a quote unquote exclusive listing? That is no good for sellers. I'll dance on that another day. With traditional agency, of course, dual agency is a huge risk because if your agent is conducting the open houses and a buyer walks in, your agent is going to become a dual agent in more often cases than not. So you're going to get no representation. Your agent's going to keep twice the fees. They are totally incentivized to make this happen. All, by the way, in the contract that you sign with them. So it's not a great value proposition, but you may fit the profile for who this is good for. Just because it's expensive doesn't mean it's necessarily bad for everyone. So if you're one of these folks who says, I want nothing to do with this process and I don't care what it costs, and those folks are out there, this is for you. This is your model. If you get overwhelmed immediately or you get intimidated when the process starts to get a little bit sticky and you don't like to ask for help, this is probably for you. If you're far less concerned about your bottom line, this is a route. If you want high touch, very high touch, face-to-face hand-holding from someone who is literally standing beside you throughout the process, this is probably a good route for you, especially if you don't mind paying for it. If you want somebody else to take control, make the decisions, drive that bus, if you just can't engage in the process at all and you need someone to take over every aspect of the sale, you can't even, be there for the photographer. You can't be there for a showing. You can't be there for an inspection. You can't be there for anyone. Now, I will tell you, I have lots of sellers who use our system and don't live near the house. They use friends, they use family, but whatever. If you have no options and you have to have a realtor on site, this is probably the route to go. Now, the takeaway here is that the 6% model, the traditional model, it has its place, but it's for a very specific customer who is far more concerned with convenience than they are with bottom line. So if you can deal with the fee, the sliding structure, the success tax, as I like to call it, then just make sure before you sign on the dotted line that you're getting someone who is very experienced. As I mentioned last episode, there are good traditional brokers and agents out there who work very hard on their craft. They study, they take classes, they've got experience, they know what they're doing. Find them, get their track record, not their team's track record. This drives me crazy. Free bonus aside, the agent who's been on the job for 5 minutes, but somehow tells you they've done 3,000 deals. No, they didn't. Their boss, who's in Florida, did 3,000 deals. And they're just part of a team. It happens all the time. Every week, we close a deal with some agent that I've never heard of other than before this deal. And I can tell from their license number, they ain't been around very long. Yet at closing, we close it under them. Then they are crawling up my tailpipe. Oh no, gosh, I'm sorry. You're supposed to close it under so-and-so. Well, who's so-and-so? It's my team lead. We put all sales through my team lead. So you're contracting with this person. And this has happened with sellers. They think they're getting the top dog who maybe even shows up for the listing appointment, but then you never see them again, ever. Who are you dealing with? How much experience do they have? And is it worth what you're going to pay? Okay. So you're essentially trusting this person with one of the biggest sales and assets of your entire life. You're going to make sure, and you're paying a king's ransom for that too. So make sure you do all you can to get your money's worth. This episode of Talking Realty is brought to you by our friends at Associates Title. This team is shaking things up by focusing on what truly matters, putting the customer first. Whether you're buying, selling, or investing, for sale by owner, working with a realtor, they've got your back with incredible cost savings and the latest technology to streamline the whole process. Their secure online portal keeps everyone in the loop, whether it's buyers or sellers or lenders or agents, and they do it all while keeping your data safe and your communications crystal clear. So if you're getting ready to make a move, don't underestimate the importance of having a great title company on board before you list. Check them out today at associatestitleinc.com or call my friend Ryan Phillips at 614-419-2418. They are in many states, so just because you're not in Ohio doesn't mean you can't give them a call. But do not leave your title company choice to chance. And certainly don't let the buyer or their agent make that choice for you. All right, back to the show. So this brings me to the third option, which is the flat fee realtor, which is our model. And we're realtors, just like everybody else I was just talking about. But as I say in the opening, we do all the same things as other realtors. We just do it differently. So in our case, the services are flexible. So with traditional realtors, their services are the same for everybody, cookie cutter. But with us, you choose the service level that you want. And this is true of most flat fee brokerages out there, is that you choose the level of service that you want, and then they tailor it to you. But the cool thing is the fees for those services are set outside of you. They're usually posted right on the website, and it costs the same no matter who you are, no matter what the price of your home is. We don't care about that stuff because the service is what it is and it costs what it costs. And our service level ranges from limited service or MLS only, listing only, where we just take a few $100s and we put your property in the MLS, and then we funnel everybody over to you. All the buyers, all the agents, everything that comes in on that property, we send it straight to you. You do the follow-up, you handle the deal, and you may or may not be working with buyer agents. That's entirely your choice. You can offer whatever you want in terms of, price and terms and so forth. You control everything through that deal. All right. We are just your marketing arm. It is a great option because one of the biggest problems with for sale by owner is a lack of exposure. You could still keep all of that control, but we expose it to much, much bigger pools of buyers across hundreds of websites that you literally can't access unless you're with a realtor. So that's a biggie. And generally everything in flat fee is done online versus in person, because in order for it to make sense for, $297, we can't be driving out to your house. It wouldn't be financially feasible. This would break the system. Think of us like LegalZoom or telemedicine. We're professionals. We're here. We're highly experienced, highly trained, but we do everything through email, through text, through, sometimes Zoom. And it works very, very well because it allows us to keep moving, keep our volume up so that our fees can stay down. So the upside is you, as the seller, are going to choose the services that you want, and you're only going to pay for those services. You're not going to be charged for a bunch of stuff you don't want or need. and you're also not going to be charged based on the price of your home. We also tend to do, as I say in the opening, I'm doing roughly 50 times in a career more than any other agent I know. Also, because of our model, we tend to attract a lot more sellers. So, it all works together. I get the experience of working through more and more files. And because we're less expensive and we give up more control, we tend to attract even more people. Gives you, the seller, a lot more control as well. And you control, for example, the price. You control the buyer agent commission. You control, if you want to use your own photographer, you can do that. If you want us to send someone, we can work that out. If you want any advice on your deal, fine, we offer that. If you don't want any advice on your deal, fine. If you just want us to do paperwork and not give advice, we can do that. So you've got all this flexibility. You decide from the very beginning of the process all the way through closing and possession, hey, this is where I kind of need some help. What do you got? What's on the menu? And that's what we do. One of the biggest controls you get is over the buyer agent commission. So let's go back a second. If there is no buyer agent involved in your deal, you pay nothing. That's just, we don't charge a fee. We don't, nothing. There's no buyer agent. There's no fee. That's it for that. We don't charge the buyer. We don't charge you. We don't charge anybody. And I can't speak for all flat fee companies, but that's how it should be, because I don't work for them. I work for you. That's just how we do it. We also avoid the dual agency trap, because if a buyer comes along, wants to buy one of our listings and they don't have an agent, that's fine. I just make it clear to them that they're unrepresented. In fact, we make them sign it, that they understand that they're unrepresented. Now, you can have an opinion about that. I have no problems with that. Many of these buyers may consult an attorney, or maybe they have a friend who's in the business, or maybe many of them are former realtors or active realtors who just don't want to pay their brokerage's rates. I won't name names, but I have a rather large list of clients who are current realtors. So take that for what it's worth. But anyway, no buyer agent, no commission, and you control every single aspect of the deal, even if you have us at full service level, like full platinum level, where I'm helping you with offers and I'm helping you with pricing and I'm helping you through inspections and appraisals. You're still in control. We say it over and over. We advise, you decide. We present your options. We give you our experience level of what we think is a best practice approach. And then we stop. We just stop and let you tell us what you want to do. And many times our sellers come up with wrinkles we've never seen before, but you can't do that if you don't have an open mind. So we're much more flexible on that route as far as letting the seller. In fact, we know that an engaged, educated, highly involved seller is going to result in a better outcome for that seller. So that's our people. Now, if you need full-time handholding, this is the downside, because that's not us. We're not available. You can't just pick up the phone and call me. You can, but you're not going to get me. All my calls have to be booked in advance. And I prefer to work by email. I prefer to work by text because it's faster and my team can kick in. And I may not, depending on what you're asking, I may not actually be the right person to talk to, because Tasia, Justin, Xander, they all have their specialties here. And they're very talented at what they do. So if you do want that person to be available to you 24/7, or if you need them to be right now on the phone, if you want them to be in person in front of you on your command, this is not for you. The other, I almost didn't say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. If you succumb to local realtor pressure, if that's a problem for you, and I'm talking to you, those regular folks that sell every few years, and maybe you're country club members, you have 23 friends that are realtors, you're going to have to upset all but one of them anyway. But I have had clients that listed with us, and then within a few weeks, they're calling me for like I'm their counselor. They're just like, what do I do? The local realtors are killing me. They're telling me that they're gonna, I know, like, they don't want to be my friends anymore, and it's awkward. Okay, most of my sellers do not give one iota of care about that. But if you do, this is real. This is real. If you list with someone like me, expect your realtor friends or the locals to feel some kind of way about that. If you want a realtor and you don't want to give up the massive hit for the 6% commission, this is probably a good fit for you. If you just want exposure or help with a specific part of the deal, and you only want to pay for that, maybe you already have your buyer and you just need somebody to help you put the deal together, or help you put the deal together and get it through to closing. We offer both. If you just want help with pricing, you just want help with something, great. We have packages for just about everything if you check out our store. If you want to drive the bus, but you want somebody who knows what they're doing, maybe navigating right behind you, that's us. Maybe you even love certain aspects of it, but not every aspect, and you want help with others. Great. Give us a call. Let's talk about this. Set up a call, rather, book a call, or reach out to me by email. And this may be a good fit for you if you're in Ohio anyway. And if you're not, we may know somebody. There's people out there in every state who do something very similar to what we do. We feel that about 80% of sellers out there are a great fit for what we do. Many of them just don't understand it, but they feel they only have two alternatives, the for sale by owner route or the traditional 6% route. And, I've been banging this drum for 25 years, but apparently I've still got some more banging to do because this is an excellent option for the majority of sellers. Best case, our marketing for a few $100s brings you a ton of buyers. And then you get the broadest exposure. You close that deal, you make out like a bandit, and you all did it with just a small flat fee versus the giant commission. The second best case, we find you a buyer and they have an agent. Okay, great. You still haven't paid 6%. You've paid something to that agent, more than likely, in the deal, but you still got all the exposure. You still got the broadest amount of buyers coming in, and you got out for probably less than half the typical commission, I will say. And worst case, you list with a 6% agent and you pay their 6% and you get results where you get them. Other worst case, you go for sale by owner. Maybe you leave thousands of dollars on the table because of poor marketing or lack of negotiating skills, or you get yourself in some legal troubles. So to wrap this up, as you choose your path on how you're going to sell, I certainly have my opinions, which I don't think I was very quiet about, but you need to know who you are. You need to know what's important to you. So if you've already got your buyer and you're an expert with contracts, stick with the for sale by owner route. And especially if you're concerned about the intrusion of the selling process, the showings, and just people giving you advice in general. If you need someone to take complete control over the process and be at your beck and call, and you don't care what it costs, go hire a traditional realtor. But if you want what I consider to be the perfect blend of fees and expertise and seller control, head over to talkingrealty.com, find out more about how we work, or start Googling Flat Fee Realtor and then your city. And I bet you'll find somebody. Make sure they're based in your state. So that's probably the easiest litmus test. And then I would say, secondly, make sure this is all they do. So if they're not from your state or they're doing flat fee as a sideline to feed you into a traditional real estate listing, because there's lots of that out there, walk away. Also, if they're not going to handle your listing. So if they're going to take your money, but then flip you over to somebody else, that's a messy situation. All right, take a look at your numbers. Would you write an $18,000 check for 10 hours worth of work just to get MLS access? Probably not. You don't have to pay. You don't have to choose either path, any of these paths, if they don't make sense for you. If you want the control, great. Still get the exposure. If you want the exposure and you want the help, great. You don't have to pay 6% to get it. But you can get all the tools you need. As I mentioned, our Ultimate Home Selling Toolkit is free. You can also book a call or shoot me an email, and I'll tell you, I'm going to be very straight up with you if I think we're not a good fit for one another, because I don't want to be miserable any more than you do. And I definitely don't want to affect my word of mouth or give you a bad experience. So if I think we're not going to be a good fit, trust me, I'll tell you. And one final note on this, no matter who you choose, no matter which way you go, if you decide to get help, whether it's a realtor, whether it's an attorney, one thing I want to emphasize is that trust trumps almost everything. If you're going to be paying for advice from someone, regardless of the cost, if you don't trust that person, that agent, that broker, that lawyer, you're probably not going to take their advice. So this is as close to lighting money on fire as I can think of, is going out and paying for advice that you immediately ignore. So before you decide who's going to ride with you into war, make sure you trust them and listen to that little voice in your head. All right, with that, I'm going to let you get back to your day. Thanks for sticking around. Hopefully you learned a little something or maybe had some fun. The Talking Realty podcast is brought to you by the Ohio Property Group, a family-owned company where we sell homes for a low flat fee. If you've got a question, you got a topic, you got a guest you'd like to hear and see on this show, head to talkingrealty.com and let us know about it. Quick reminder that our 50th podcast episode is just around the corner. I am so excited for this. To mark that special event, Tasia and Justin and I are going to be in the studio responding to actual seller questions and helping them solve their problems. There is still time to get your questions in because we're not recording this for another week or two. Just head to talkingrealty.com, send us a message, leave us a comment on YouTube, but let us know your question and your situation, and maybe I'll feature your question on the 50th episode. So until next time, keep making smart moves in your real estate journey. For the Ohio Property Group, this is Glen Whitten signing off. And remember, you can sell it. We can help.